There comes a pivotal turning point in every man's life when a part of him fades away, making way for something entirely new. This transformation occurs when he relinquishes the belief that the world holds any genuine concern for him. Imagine a moment when you realize that expecting the world to care is a fool's errand. He no longer seeks sympathy, nor does he wait for someone to acknowledge his suffering or reward his integrity. In that instant, clarity washes over him as he perceives the world's true nature: indifferent, harsh, and self-serving. Rather than succumbing to despair, he becomes invulnerable. Once you grasp that no one truly cares, you unlock a newfound freedom. This freedom allows you to act without the need for approval, to move without the desire for accolades, and to endure without harboring resentment. This is the moment when everything shifts. Machiavelli held no illusions about fairness. His belief was rooted in the harsh realities of human nature. People only invest their emotional energy when it serves their interests. Did we make a solid case for the central paradox? Show your agreement by tapping the like button. We promise consistent, thought-provoking content that pushes the boundaries of knowledge. Subscribe to ensure you never miss an upload. They may care when your pain presents them with an opportunity, when your achievements elevate their status, or when your failures provide them with entertainment. But their concern is superficial, lacking depth and sincerity. If you construct your life on the expectation that others will care for you, you're merely building a palace over a sinkhole, doomed to collapse. And when it does, those who once surrounded you will pass by your ruins without a second glance. The sooner you embrace this truth, the quicker you can forge something resilient, an existence that thrives not on being loved, but on being respected, feared, or deemed essential. It may seem harsh, but this realization is not cruelty. It is a moment of enlightenment. The notion that others should care for you merely because you suffer is a childish fantasy. True power emerges when you bury that fantasy deep within. When you accept that your burdens belong solely to you, and that no one will come to your rescue, you begin to ask not why no one is helping, but rather what can be constructed from the silence that surrounds you. What if the key to true power lies in embracing indifference? This shift alters your demeanor. You cease to broadcast your wounds, and instead become the kind of man whose silence makes others uneasy. That silence, that refusal to plead for care, becomes your fortress. This is the bedrock of Stoic strength: to endure without theatrics, to suffer without seeking applause, to bleed without an audience. This is the essence of true resilience. Many, even those who consider themselves strong, are addicted to emotional displays. They dress their pain in poetic language, hinting at their struggles, seeking pity disguised as honesty. However, the Machiavellian mind recognizes that every display of suffering is a transactional exchange. When you continually showcase your wounds, you diminish your value. Instead of being perceived as strong, you become someone desperately seeking attention. The moment this becomes apparent, your influence wanes. This isn't to suggest that you should become emotionally numb. Rather, it's about choosing what to reveal and when, ensuring it aligns with your strategic goals. The world rewards strength, not vulnerability. The quickest route to true strength is to behave as if no one cares, even if a part of you still longs for recognition. When you adopt this mindset, you stop waiting. You cease to postpone your growth, stop relying on invisible support, and begin training your mind to navigate through adversity alone. A man who embodies this philosophy requires no applause, no sympathy, and no acknowledgement. The moment you stop seeking validation is the moment everything changes. He becomes an undeniable force, and people feel that presence the moment he steps into a room. Ironically, when you relinquish the desire for others to care, they begin to take notice. When you stop striving for understanding, you become intriguing. When you stop pleading for loyalty, people find themselves pursuing your approval. True indifference, the kind that is authentic and earned, is a rarity. Many men feign disinterest, yet beneath the surface they are boiling with emotion. The Machiavellian man, however, genuinely possesses indifference, not from a place of brokenness, but from an understanding of the game at play. This difference unsettles those still clinging to the hope of being loved without effort. And what unsettles others, ultimately, commands their attention. Consider how many individuals mold their identities around being liked. They say what sounds appealing, share their struggles in search of validation, and post inspirational quotes about resilience, only to crumble under pressure. They desire the facade of toughness while seeking the comfort of sympathy. This is not true strength. It is mere decoration. Genuine resilience is often invisible. It resides in the man who walks past you bearing heavy scars without the need for explanation. It is the man who keeps his pain private because he knows it is a weapon. That is the man who instills fear and commands respect. Machiavelli would urge you to stop advertising your hardships and instead utilize them. Could it be that emotional independence is the path to becoming untouchable? Each time you feel the urge to complain, pause and remind yourself, no one truly cares, not deeply, not consistently, and that realization is not a tragedy, it is liberation. Once you accept this, your actions begin to shift. You stop over-explaining your choices. You cease justifying your existence. You abandon the need for forgiveness for being ambitious, assertive, or unapologetically focused. You come to understand that caring excessively about whether others care for you is the softest form of bondage. True freedom begins when you release that burden. This is where the Stoic merges with the strategist. When no one cares, your losses become private, your growth becomes a secret, and your ambition becomes precise and calculated. You build in silence. You endure in silence. And then one day, you emerge, and no one knows how you achieved your success. While they were preoccupied with the loud and needy crumbling under the weight of unfulfilled expectations, you were becoming an untouchable presence, gliding through challenges unscathed. You didn't require applause, pity, or even companionship. What you needed was silence, for it was the silence that revealed the truth. Power belongs to the man who does not plead for care. Yet, this transformation is not simple. You will find yourself tempted to reach out, to explain, to seek connection. Yet this transformation is not simple. You will find yourself tempted to reach out, to explain, to seek connection. You will experience moments of uncertainty, where your silence feels like a heavy weight pressing down on you. Embrace that discomfort. It signifies the old version of yourself is fading away. Allow it to perish. Let the part of you that craves attention and validation wither. Let the anger that arises from being overlooked fade into stillness, for beneath that chaos lies an extraordinary strength. The man who acts for his own sake. The man who ascends not because of others' support, but through sheer determination and grit. That is the man who etches his legacy into memory. Not the one who made the loudest noise, but the one who remained steadfast. You see, the world is indifferent to your pain. yet it will pay attention to who you become as a result of it. If you allow that harsh truth to break you, you will merely become another voice lost in a sea of complaints. However, if you choose to harden, to refine yourself, to rise quietly, you transform into the kind of figure Machiavelli admired: untouchable, unpredictable, and unforgettable. And here lies the paradox. When you stop seeking approval, when you relinquish the need for understanding or support, you gain influence. People are drawn to your presence. They sense something within you that they lack. An internal authority, the calmness of a man who is no longer waiting for the world to catch up, the strength of someone who has buried his need for sympathy. Such a presence alters the atmosphere. It shifts power dynamics. It prompts the weak to mimic you, even if they cannot articulate what they are drawn to. This is why Machiavelli wrote for those who sought power, not pity. Because pity is fleeting. It dissipates with changing moods. But true power, silent, indifferent power, endures. When you accept that no one cares, you free yourself from depending on the emotional fluctuations of others. You cease to seek refuge and instead construct a fortress from stone. From that stronghold, you view the world not with bitterness, but with clarity. You harbor no desire for revenge against those who overlooked you. Instead, you express gratitude, for their silence has led you to discover your own. And in your newfound silence, you have rediscovered yourself. Once you cross that invisible threshold, once you genuinely grasp that no one cares, you enter a rare state. The world quiets around you, not because there's less noise, but because you've stopped yearning for applause. You no longer scan faces for signs of empathy. You no longer alter your behavior to earn affection. And in that profound silence, you begin to hear something else. Your own thoughts, unfiltered, unrestrained, and sharper than ever. Because you are no longer performing. You are building. This is when the metamorphosis becomes irreversible. You no longer awaken with the question, will they care today? Instead, you rise with a singular thought. What must be accomplished? You begin to treat your suffering like a sculptor approaches stone. Not as something to display, but as material to shape. Every betrayal, every setback, every moment of feeling invisible becomes your raw material. You do not lament it, you chisel it. What is the greatest mystery you think humanity will solve in the next decade? Leave your prediction in the comments. Let's discuss this below. Because the man who realizes that no one cares ceases to wish for a better world and begins to forge one in his image. And here's the aspect most will never grasp. Once you relinquish your need for the world, you begin to command it. That may sound contradictory, but it is brutally real. Dependence repels power. Independence attracts it. When people perceive your emotional self-sufficiency, everything shifts. Their tone alters. Their posture changes. They become cautious with their words around you. Not because you are loud, but because your silence is not desperate. It is composed. It is dangerous. It signifies you are not pleading for approval. You are operating on your own terms. And people fear those terms, even as they admire them. Consider the most formidable figures in history, be they rulers, thinkers, warriors, or builders. The common thread binding them was not that they were beloved. It's that they didn't need to be. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire while enduring the loss of children, grappling with illness, and facing betrayals that would have crushed most men. Did he succumb to public despair? Did he seek sympathy? No. He wrote to himself in solitude. He reminded himself daily, no one is coming to save you. Be your own fortress. That is the essence of Stoic reality, and it is Machiavellian too, not because it is cold, but because it is effective. Niccolo Machiavelli understood that a man who anticipates care from the masses is already defeated. Why? Because the masses are fickle. Today they chant your name. Tomorrow they demand your head. If your power hinges on their affection, then your power is borrowed. But if your strength arises from your indifference to their approval, if you lead whether they cheer or jeer, then you become untouchable. And that is the only kind of power worth possessing. Not popularity, not applause, not validation, command. So when you feel forsaken, overlooked, or misunderstood, you find yourself at a crucial juncture. One path leads to bitterness, the other to greatness. Most opt for bitterness. They sulk. They withdraw. They become resentful that the world is unjust, that no one recognized their worth. They squander years in that haze. But the Machiavellian path diverges. You see the same truth that no one cares, and rather than lament it, you make it your foundation. You stop expecting fairness from the world. You begin to evolve into something that cannot be overlooked. That transformation starts with the way you communicate. The weak lament their invisibility. The strong allow their results to speak for themselves. You will never hear the powerful over-explain their worth. Why? Because they recognize that freely given attention is charity, and charity diminishes value. If someone fails to appreciate your worth, you do not plead with them. You make yourself so exceptional, so effective, so dominant in your domain, that they are compelled to take notice. But what happens when you realize the true power of indifference? What awaits you on the other side of this transformation? But what happens when you fully grasp the profound strength that comes from indifference? What lies ahead on this path of transformation? This is where the true distinction emerges. It's not about seeking approval. It's about understanding that your presence is essential for others' survival. A man who pleads for validation is vastly different from one who commands respect through consequence. When you relinquish the expectation of care, you stop offering fragments of yourself to others. You cease to pour your emotions into every space you occupy. Rather than advertising your wounds in search of rescue, you learn to wield your pain as a weapon. You transform heartbreak into a source of discipline. You redirect rejection to carve out your path. You convert neglect into an undeniable presence. Once you accept that no one is coming to save you, you become the one who steps forward. People will perceive this shift, and it will unsettle them. Not due to aggression, but because you exude completeness. Most individuals wander through life as open wounds, perpetually leaking emotions and yearning for someone to mend them. When they encounter someone who is whole, who does not seek validation or explanation, they feel disoriented. You are not like them. You are not here to be rescued. You are here to claim what is rightfully yours. That energy, that icy clarity, is what imbues you with power. It's the same clarity that constructs empires, the same clarity that withstands betrayal, the same clarity that remains unfazed when former allies turn their backs. Because once you acknowledge that care is not a given, you begin to assess people not by how they make you feel, but by how they behave when no one is watching. That's where true loyalty is unveiled. That's where strategy takes root. You start discerning who truly deserves a place at your table. not based on their treatment of you during your moments of glory, but by their actions, when you retreat into silence, when you fade into the background, when you cease to give. This is another facet of the Stoic Machiavellian transformation. You become more discerning. You stop pursuing connections. Instead, you become an observer of behavior. You notice who checks in when there's nothing to gain. You see who vanishes when you cease performing. You recognize who speaks your name only when it's popular, and who still whispers it when it's hushed. You catalog these observations, not for revenge, but for clarity. Because true power isn't merely about ascending, it's about knowing who can stand beside you without dragging you down. And this insight emerges when you stop relying on others for care. Eventually, your identity undergoes a metamorphosis. You are no longer the one who suffered or the one who was overlooked. That narrative fades away. You become the individual who persevered despite it all. And that new story reshapes everything. It imbues your past with significance. It grants your pain a sense of purpose. And it presents your adversaries with an insurmountable challenge. Because you didn't wait for a savior. You evolved into something far more formidable. A man who moves forward without the need for applause, without requiring permission, without the necessity of understanding. That is what terrifies them most. Many believe they possess strength until the applause fades, until the check-ins cease, until the room falls silent, and then they shrink. But the one who flourishes in that silence, who continues to advance not in spite of indifference, but because of it, transforms into a legend. He becomes the subject of hushed conversations. How did he endure that? How did he ascend from such depths? Why didn't he crumble? The answer remains unchanged. Because he ceased to expect anyone to care. And from that pivotal moment onward, he never waited again. He didn't become cold. He became strategic. He didn't grow bitter. He grew stronger. He didn't stop feeling. He stopped needing. And that transformation rendered him a formidable presence. When a man no longer seeks validation, he sheds the burden of predictability. He becomes unmanageable, no longer under the control of others. He evolves into the one others rely on, and he gains the freedom to walk away from anything without pleading. That is when you achieve victory quietly, enduringly, irrevocably. It all hinges on the acceptance that no one owes you even a single drop of care. Not the world, not your friends, not even fate itself. You either forge your identity from the ground up or allow silence to engulf you. For the Machiavellian mindset, there is only ever one choice. At this juncture, a profound internal transformation occurs. The desire for validation is eclipsed by a fierce appetite for control. You are no longer focused on being noticed. You are committed to becoming undeniable. Not in the loud, attention-seeking manner many adopt, but through the quiet, calculated approach that Machiavelli understood best. When you stop yearning for care, you cease to play by others' emotional rules. You no longer seek permission to exist. Instead, you begin to reshape reality according to your will. One choice at a time, one moment of silence at a time, one steadfast refusal to waver at a time. You become your own sovereign territory, no longer emotionally colonized by anyone else, no longer waiting for the outside world to assign worth to you. You establish your own value, not for the sake of feeling good, but as a means of survival with power. This shift fortifies your psyche into an impenetrable fortress. You don't just become harder to manipulate, you become impossible to sway unless you've already chosen to move. people fail to grasp how rare this state is. Most wander through life governed by unseen forces, driven by the need for love, the fear of abandonment, the desperate hope that someone will finally acknowledge them. These invisible strings dictate every choice they make. It's why they buckle under pressure. It's why they betray their convictions for fleeting affection. It's why they become pawns in games they don't even realize they're playing. But when you accept, with unyielding clarity, that no one cares, you sever those strings. You act without the need for applause. But what lies ahead as you continue to embrace this transformation? What revelations await you on this path? But what revelations await you as you delve deeper into this transformation? What unexpected turns lie ahead on this journey? You find yourself moving forward without the need for closure. You toil away in silence, deriving satisfaction solely from your own efforts, expecting nothing in return. This psychological autonomy can be unsettling for others, as it strips them of their ability to manipulate you. They can no longer entice you with promises or threaten you with the withdrawal of affection, for you have already buried the part of you that relied on such validation. Your actions become more streamlined and purposeful. No longer do you waste energy trying to justify yourself to those who refuse to listen. You break free from the exhausting emotional exchanges with individuals who will never grasp your true motivations. You no longer plead for trust. Instead, you embody it. Those who fail to recognize your worth are simply left behind. This isn't an act of cruelty. It's a demonstration of precision. You strategically abandon all that weighs you down. Your mission now takes precedence over fleeting emotions. This marks a pivotal shift in your journey. Your purpose transitions from emotional fulfillment to strategic conquest. You don't strive for improvement merely to feel better. You aim to dominate. You don't ascend to gain admiration. You rise to become indispensable. This mindset distinguishes the weak from those who shape the world. The weak seek comfort and validation. The powerful aspire to become irreplaceable. When you embrace the notion that no one truly cares, the only way forward is to cultivate a level of competence and resilience that demands attention, forcing even the indifferent to acknowledge your presence. You cease to live for sympathy. Instead, you begin to live for leverage. And here's the most profound realization of all. Once you relinquish your need for others' approval, you'll find that people start to take notice. Not because they've changed, but because you have. Your detachment becomes a force of gravity. Your silence exudes status. Your unwillingness to chase leads others to pursue you. Most individuals are repelled by neediness, but drawn to genuine indifference. Especially when that indifference is authentic, not a facade. And make no mistake, there is a significant difference. Phony indifference is loud and desperate. It tries too hard, feigning apathy while constantly checking for acknowledgement. True indifference, on the other hand, is subtle. It does not seek attention or validation. It simply progresses, regardless of whether an audience is present. When you carry yourself with this demeanor, people begin to wonder. What insights does he possess that I lack? Why is he so self-assured? What trials has he endured to become this way? They perceive that you've faced challenges, endured in silence, and learned to navigate through adversity without lamenting your struggles. Whether they admire you or fear you, they cannot overlook your presence. This is the precise power that Machiavelli revered, the kind that doesn't demand acknowledgement, but instead instills a sense of unease when you enter a room, as others sense they might be in the presence of something unbreakable. This is what embracing the idea that no one cares truly unlocks. Not bitterness, but resilience. You cease lamenting what others failed to provide and begin to leverage what they could never take from you. Your dignity, your focus, your relentless drive. Once these qualities are solely yours, your power quietly accumulates day by day, unyieldingly. You stop discussing your plans, you start executing them. You no longer feel the need to justify your standards. You begin to enforce them. You cease waiting for the perfect moment. You become the moment. Initially, no one will applaud. Not when you crave it the most. But now, that's inconsequential. You've constructed your foundation without the need for applause. You've endured without sympathy. And this makes you fearfully effective. Those who achieve success without external support are the ones who remain intact when that support fades away. This is the unspoken truth. The world only offers accolades after you've demonstrated that you no longer rely on them. Those who cling to the need for validation are the ones who crumble the moment the applause fades. You will not be among them. You've already thrived in silence. You've built your strength in the shadows. You've starved your yearning for love. And in this deprivation, you discovered your true power. So when the world finally turns its gaze upon you, when they inquire how you manage to endure, you won't need to articulate an answer. They will see it reflected in your eyes. The quiet storm, the unwavering resolve, the calm that emerges from traversing through the flames alone. The reality is straightforward. Once you accept that no one cares, you relinquish the need for rescue. You transform into the storm they thought would shatter you. And now, you are the force that breaks them. By the time you reach this level of detachment, you are no longer driven by fleeting hopes. You are propelled by the certainty of your path. You no longer yearn to be acknowledged. You no longer seek love. You no longer desire to be chosen. All that longing was incinerated in the crucible of silence. What emerged was not a man longing for acceptance, but a man sculpting his own reality. A man who stands unflinching in solitude because he has walked so far without applause that silence has become his sanctuary. This is where the Machiavellian mindset completely eclipses the emotional one. Many individuals remain caught in the cycle of negotiation with reality. They strive to elicit care from the world, hoping for life to reward them for their goodness, kindness, and loyalty. But the world does not reward sentiment. It rewards effectiveness. And once you abandon the illusion that being cared for is a guarantee, you cease to negotiate. You begin to operate. This shift in energy is profound. Your actions become resolute under pressure. Your ambition remains unyielding amidst loneliness. Your course is not swayed by rejection. You are no longer engaged in a game with others. What will happen next as you continue to embrace this potent mindset? What further transformations await on this path of indifference and power? What will happen next as you continue to embrace this potent mindset? What further transformations await on this path of indifference and power? You are crafting a game that compels others to participate. The fewer individuals you anticipate will care, the more formidable you become. Now, you are unencumbered by the emotional red tape that ensnares most lives. You don't stop to clarify. You don't pause to provide reassurance. You don't guide others through their discomfort. You simply advance. The world must either adapt to your pace or falter in your absence. You may be perceived as devoid of emotion. But this isn't a lack of feeling. It's about refinement and precision. You still experience emotions, but in solitude. You harness those feelings not to lament, but to strategize, to plot, to exact retribution, and to construct something that can never be taken from you again. You have come to understand a brutal yet beautiful truth that Machiavelli alluded to. You cannot compel others to care. You can only compel them to comply. That is the true distinction. The weak yearn for emotional validation. The powerful seek tangible results. The sooner you recognize that emotional validation is a fallacy, the quicker you will seize genuine control over your life. Not everyone will stand by you. Not everyone will comprehend your journey. Not everyone will show concern. And so what? What does their concern construct? What does their comprehension safeguard? What does their sympathy accomplish when you're wounded at the pinnacle of your struggles? Nothing. It may seem harsh, but that's the reality. Yet harshness isn't cruelty. It's simply honesty. The world doesn't operate on feelings. It operates on power. And the first step toward power is mastering your own mind. Once you acknowledge that care is a currency you cannot force others to expend, you cease your pleas for it. You cultivate wealth through different means: quiet strength, unyielding patience, relentless self-discipline, and most importantly, emotional solitude. Solitude becomes your forge. Solitude is your guiding star. Solitude is your refuge. Because within that solitude, the need for recognition fades away. And finally, at last, you gain clarity. You recognize who is exploiting you, who is testing your limits, who only shows concern when it serves their purposes, who cheers only when the crowd cheers first. That insight, that clarity, is the very blade Machiavelli was honing all along. Once you accept that no one truly cares, you cease to romanticize loyalty from strangers. You stop feeling betrayed when silence envelops you. You stop waiting for others to reach out. Instead, you turn inward, not to hide, but to refine. From that refinement emerges something unexpected from the quiet figure in the corner. Dominance. Because when the crowd witnesses someone who does not flinch, does not explain, and does not depend, they begin to orbit around you. They lean in. They become curious. And suddenly, the same world that once overlooked you starts to murmur your name. He never begged. He never complained. He never crumbled. And now that you are unshakable, they offer the very care they once withheld. But by that time, you no longer need it. You have already built your empire without it. You have already endured without it. You have already become everything you needed to be in the shadows. This is the Machiavellian truth. People only begin to care once you demonstrate that you do not require their validation. And even then, their concern is merely a byproduct, not a necessity. You move forward with or without it. You achieve victory with or without it. You endure with or without it. And once people comprehend that you have made peace with solitude, they cease to view you as fragile. They begin to see you as inevitable. In this realm, being inevitable is the only identity worth pursuing. Now, when someone overlooks you, it does not rattle you. It reveals their true nature. When someone retracts their support, it does not shatter you. It unveils their limitations. When someone attempts to punish you with silence, you welcome it. That is where you thrive. This is how you dismantle the chains of emotional dependency. You cease to interpret indifference as loss and begin to view it as training. Every time someone failed to care, they honed your edge. Every time someone was absent, they granted you the time to build alone. Every time the world remained silent, it pushed you deeper into the only voice that matters, your own. And now you do not flinch. You do not plead. You do not justify. You enforce. Your boundaries are law. Your movements are subtle. Your standards are non-negotiable. And those who once didn't care will soon realize the weight of their mistake when they find themselves without access to the man who requires nothing from them. Because when you accept that no one cares, you reclaim your power. When you reclaim your power, you stop waiting. And when you stop waiting, you become the one for whom others wait, and you never look back. Did we make a solid case for the central paradox? Show your agreement by tapping the like button. We promise consistent, thought-provoking content that pushes the boundaries of knowledge. Subscribe to ensure you never miss an upload. And in the next video, we'll discover why your generosity is making you a target. Machiavelli.